I had this myself some years ago. I went into a job and the job didn't work out, and I felt like a terrible failure after this happened. And it's not just that the job didn't work out or I failed at the job. I felt like I was a failure because I had a certain expectation, and I felt that my career required me to go in certain steps, and I felt I got to a certain step and I stumbled and fell and I couldn't progress further in that career. So I had a deep sense of loss, a deep sense of personal failure which persisted for years. Hi, today I'd like to talk about the subject of self-expectations, what you should expect from yourself, and should you suffer over your self-expectations? Or how can we progress in life without having high expectations? How are we supposed to manage our self-expectations? So let's hop in there and take a look. The reason for today's video is thinking lately about expectations and the role they play in human life, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges we have when we look at things like especially envy, where we're envying other people, and how much people play office politics to try and get one over the next guy, and how hurt people feel when somebody does better than them. And also I've noticed over the years so many people come to me and tell me that they feel like they've let themselves down, like they're not a success, they're not happy, that their achievement is lower than their self-expectations. So how do we actually handle it? So I think the first thing I'd like to say is that ideally we should not have expectations, but I'll get back to that later. So here's the problem with expectations. Our expectations are largely created by our early life experience. So for example, a poor kid, when he grows up, will expect less than a rich kid. A rich kid would expect at least the richness he had. Most people expect at least what my parents had, and hopefully better. One of the challenges, for example, in Western countries, places like America and Europe, for example, is that things were better and things are getting worse because they hit an economic peak around the 70s or 80s and things are now going down. So that's a very tough one because in this case, your dad and mom had a lifestyle, you're never going to have that lifestyle. That's disappointing. But let's just talk in general about self-expectation. So we all have arbitrary ideas about what we want to achieve in life. And the challenge is that they are somewhat arbitrary. And the problem we have with the very nature of self-expectation is that if we don't meet them, not only have we failed, but we feel like we're a failure. I had this myself some years ago. I went into a job and the job didn't work out, and I felt like a terrible failure after this happened. And it's not just that the job didn't work out or I failed at the job. I felt like I was a failure because I had a certain expectation, and I felt that my career required me to go in certain steps, and I felt I got to a certain step and I stumbled and fell and I couldn't progress further in that career. So I had a deep sense of loss, a deep sense of personal failure which persisted for years. This is the problem with self-expectation. I was expecting something. And expecting something and getting something is fine. But if you expect something and then it's pulled away from you, then it's a different situation altogether. So the problem with self-expectation is that our self-esteem is tied into our self-expectation. Now, as I said, self-expectations is arbitrary in nature. And so a couple of problems we have with self-expectation. For a start, a lot of people have a cognitive dissonance between what they can achieve and can't achieve. And there's two major challenges. The first one is, do I have the talent to achieve my goal? And the second is, do I have the luck to achieve my goal? What I mean by that, say for example, your expectation is you want to go into, say, IT and software programming, and you want to earn, say, $1 million a year. Well, in America, presently today in America, the average salary for a software developer is $100,000 a year. A really successful computer programmer is $200,000 a year, and $300,000 would be definitely the top 1%. $1 million a year in software, is it possible? Well, yes it is. But the talent you require, the level of expertise in software that you require, and not to mention the the skills, the corporate skills, knowing how to market yourself, how to talk to other people, how to understand and put these skills to use so that you could solve real world problems, dealing with office politics, branding yourselves. There's a whole bunch of skills, and not just a raw skill of being really good at computer programming. There's a whole bunch of other skills required to get that much money. So do you have those skills, or can you get those skills? Okay. The other one is luck. So for example, let's say you go into business and say, I want to become a millionaire. And this old sense of millionaire, when I was a kid, like winning $1 million, for example, was a big thing. Having $1 million is a big thing. Nowadays, of course, a lot of people say my house is worth $1 million. But it's not really, you go to sell your house and be homeless, and you're still only earning maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year. It's not much use to you, really, is it? So what we're looking at is a person who's a real millionaire in the old schooly sense of being a millionaire, which today might mean $10 million or something. So when people think of a millionaire, they think of somebody who has, say, $1 million plus after expenses, tax. So maybe a business is turning over $50 million a year, net profit is $10 million, 3 or 4 million goes back into investments, 5 or 6 million is left, split 3 ways by 3 owners or something. That's what we think of a millionaire. So quite substantially successful. Well, here's the thing. You can set up a business. Anybody can set up a business. But unless you're an absolute genius, or your dad is some rich guy, the odds are that it's going to be a struggle to develop that $1 million business. Now, you might be able to develop that $1 million business, or you might not. There's a lot of luck. Are you a good enough business person? Is your business proposition good enough? Is the market ready for what you're selling? Do you know how to create a business? Can you create a successful team around you? Is the market going the right way at the right time? If you look at most successful entrepreneurs, they're not successful in every business. And most entrepreneurs will have gone through multiple businesses before they become successful. And most successful entrepreneurs will tell you, you never know which one's going to be successful. And there's lots of people, good, talented people out there who are successful entrepreneurs, and they never became a millionaire. They're making a half-decent middle-class income, like $100,000, $200,000 after all the expenses. But they're not millionaires. Luck is involved. So there's 2 problems with expectation. One is you either need talent, or the others need luck. And of course, in some cases, you need luck and talent. And the problem is that people are expecting, because we see there's a whole industry, self-help industry out there. You can strive for anything you want. You can achieve anything you want. Well, let's say you want to become an astronaut. Can you make yourself an astronaut? No, somebody has to pick you. Let's say you want to become a fighter pilot. Can you make yourself a fighter pilot? No, you have to go through a selection process. You may or may not get it. You may or may not get into that top university. And if you go down the stream, depending upon your skill set and where you're living and how things go for you, you may or may not even get that job. You may or may not even be able to go and make ends meet. That person that you want to engage with romantically, they may say yes to you, they may say no. And this comes into the area of variability. Let's say you're crazy about somebody and you want to marry that person. And this very often happens. Say you're dating somebody. Often one person is very intensely in love with that other person, and the other person just likes that person. Well, you can look at that and assess that and see if you can win them over. But a certain point in time is going to come in that if you reality check, you realize that maybe that's never going to happen. Maybe I can maintain a relationship with that person, but they're always going to be up here to me and I'm going to be down there to them. No matter how hard I try, I can't force somebody to love me. There's a variability in it. And this is the whole problem with expectation, is that there's so many variabilities. So you've got the talent question, you've got the luck question, and the luck question can diversify into all sorts of areas regarding things like, are you lucky enough that the person you love loves you? That's kind of lucky. Did you apply for a job at a certain time, the right time? You just start a business at the right time. Like if you opened up a video rental store in 1982, it's probably the right time. You're trying to do it today, it's not going to work. So you have to be savvy, but to some degree you have to be lucky. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, well, what am I supposed to do? Should I have no expectations? And of course, I think that's a fair point. Like, should we just drift through life? Should we just sit at home and play computer games and smoke marijuana and just drift? Forget about that person we want to marry. Forget about that job or passion we have. No, I'm not saying that. But what would I suggest? What I would suggest is replacing expectation with aspiration. So for a start, when I expect something, my entire self-esteem is tied up to my expectation. So ideally, I said earlier in the video, you should really expect nothing. But I know that's too bitter a pill for most of us to take. Let's just think of it this way. If I aspire to something, let's say I aspire to, say, a certain job, and I don't get that job. At least I'm not crushed when the job doesn't work out. Or I get the job, but the job doesn't work out. Again, I'm not crushed. I aspire to become a millionaire from a business. It doesn't work out, I don't get crushed. I aspire for somebody to love me, but they don't love me. I don't get crushed. Now that doesn't mean I roll up and die and not bother. What I mean is, you could then look at that situation tactically, taking a reality check on it and say, okay, I didn't get that job. What do I need to get that job? I didn't get that relationship. How do I get that relationship? I didn't make $1 million in this business. Can I make $1 million in this business? If I can't make $1 million in this business, should I go into another business? Should I search for another relationship? Should I look for another job? Do I have to accept the reality of the job and have a side hustle? So what I'm saying is, you have these bigger long-term goals that you want to achieve in your life. But everything to get you there is an aspirational goal. You're not comparing yourself to, it must work in this job, it must work in this relationship, it must work in this situation. Maybe you can't become a fighter pilot. Maybe you can't become a brain surgeon. Maybe you can't make that person fall in love with you. Maybe you can't get that pay rise. But what can you do? So what I would say is, rather than feeling crestfallen because your expectations are not met, you have to adjust. I'll give you an example that we just seen recently with the whole coronavirus lockdown. I know so many people who lost their business or missed out on a college opportunity or missed out on a job opportunity because this virus came at a certain time, and it created great disruption. And many people set up a business and lost the business. Of course, some people did very well. In the IT industry, a lot of people did very well, for example. These are variabilities. But let's say something happened and you lost your business. Are you going to be crushed, or are you going to be tactical? The person you loved walked out on you. Are you going to be crushed? Are you going to be tactical? So that's what I'm saying. Aspiration and then reality checking rather than expectation. The final thing I'd like to say in this is that, in general, I would not suggest that anybody have a self-expectation. Because the problem with a self-expectation is that when it's not met, you feel crushed. So if we think about life, I think this is where cognitive dissonance comes. Cognitive dissonance comes because we cannot face the reality of the situation. The reality of the life that we're living in is that it's very chaotic. We're not in control. And the existential angst of knowing that you're not in control and that life is chaotic is just too hard for us to deal with. So our ego pampers us with illusions, and illusions are fine to a degree. It's good to not be a broken man or woman. It's good to pick yourself up. But the problem with these delusions which our mind gives us, things like aspiring to be something that I never have the talent for, or tying my expectations into a wish fulfillment, okay? So we all know cases of people, for example, with failed marriages, and they keep expecting their husband or wife to come back 10, 15, 20 years later. They're still expecting them to walk through the door. That's cognitive dissonance. Expecting that person to marry you, and you've asked them out 100 times, and they've got at this stage, they're going to court to get a order to ban you from being near them. I mean, it's just never going to happen. Okay? You've applied to the army, the police, the air force, and they're not taking you. You just have to accept it. You went to so many colleges, you couldn't get the top one. There's a certain level we have to realize that I'm searching for something that's unrealistic. Now that doesn't mean I can't have my long-term goals to be wealthy, successful, happy, whatever, but I have to accept the short-term reality. And if you look at most people who are very successful, they stick to the long-term goals. They don't worry about the short-term failures. You will fail. You have to fail, but you have to fail forward. It's okay to fail because you have to try something. If it doesn't succeed, you have to try it again. But not be depressing yourself over it, but moving forward. So there really is no point in having expectations in life. Life is too chaotic. We should really aspire to certain things. And reality check. So, what to do with self-expectations, how to handle self-expectations, are really to have a reality check on what we, first of all, is to have aspirations rather than expectations, and then to reality check and keep moving forward towards those long-term goals. Never take anything personally. That's the final tidbit. You get fired, your wife or husband leaves you, the kids leave you, the dog leaves you, you don't get the job, you get fired from the job, you get kicked out of the country, you lose the visa, you don't get the research grant, you get screwed by your business partner, etc., etc., etc. Don't take it personally. Shit happens, don't take it personally. Learn from it, reality check it, and move forward. That would be my advice on it. Hope this helps you a little bit. Talk to you next time, and please like, subscribe if you do. Bye for now.